Welcome back to the Wild Game Dynasty podcast. Thanks again to all our listeners and for tuning in. Our guest today is a voice for the hunters of Michigan, a man extremely passionate about the future of Michigan's whitetail management. We've had him on before, Jordan Hoover. Thanks again for joining us, man. Last time we talked, we discussed your role with the UP Deer Advisory Team, or DAT, along with deer regs and the future of hunting in Michigan. However, quite a bit has happened since we last spoke. So if you don't mind, could you get us up to speed on what the future of Michigan's deer regs hold?
Sure. Well, it's good to be back, Ryan. Thanks for having me on the show, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. Yeah, it's been busy in the deer world, and a lot of people out there might not be aware of this, but typically deer regulations operate on a 3-year cycle. Unfortunately, it doesn't often work that way, right? Like there's always somebody with their hand in a cookie jar for something on a yearly basis, it seems like. But the department's goal is to only make major regulatory changes every 3 years. And really the rationale behind that is, from a scientific viewpoint, when you make a change, you want to have a reliable data stream thereafter that you can evaluate and look at and assess and say, well, we did this, and then this changed. And then assess, was that positive? Was that negative? Do we want to continue this? So that's why the department likes to have that 3-year span, and it certainly does make it difficult when, every year we're tweaking something, we're doing something. But that's the rationale. But this year is the 3-year deadhead, if you will, where everything's kind of coming together, and we're trying to do all the major things we want to do right now, foreseeably for the next 3 years, knock on wood, that there's no changes next year. Mm-hmm. But we will see.
Interesting. So that's why this coming NRC meeting is going to be a big one, because there's a lot on the agenda.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the April 8th Natural Resources Commission meeting down in Lansing at the Lansing Community College is going to be one for the ages, for sure. There is a lot of big topics being discussed around the state of Michigan right now with deer regulations, and I'm really happy to see that public awareness of a lot of these issues has risen significantly over the last 3 years. And it might sound crazy, but I mean, even 3 years ago, you talked to a lot of people and they couldn't tell you the difference between the DNR and the NRC.
Right. Yeah, there is definitely more knowledge being spread, for sure. It's so easy to see.
Yeah, and I mean, that does me a lot of good, right? Because if you talk about not just change with deer regs, but change for the culture of Michigan hunting and better things for our children's futures going forwards, it always stems from engagement, right? It's grassroots initiatives that really get things done. And the way to do that, of course, is educating people on how to engage. Where do I find information on commission meetings? Who can I talk to in the DNR about deer? Whatever these things are, providing people the resources and the opportunity to engage, and then seeing them choose to do that has been really rewarding for me personally. It's exciting. It's an exciting time to be a Michigan hunter right now, and I think there's a lot of reason for optimism going forward.
I like it. So on my agenda to talk today is the biggest problems in deer hunting across the United States, and then the biggest regulation changes that are on the table currently for Michigan. So I don't know if you want to start with the regs or the problems in the United States with deer hunting first, or
let's start big picture and then let's drill down.
So the biggest problems facing deer hunters in America today. So you got the three biggest problems. Number one is declining access to private land. Number two is shrinking habitat due to development and management. And number three is a significant drop in doe harvest. So those were the three, researching online, across the entire country. This isn't just Michigan. So I look at Michigan and I'm like, well, we have actually the most public land east of the Mississippi. Okay, there's east of the Mississippi. West of that, there's a lot of states that have a lot of public land, but they're still all complaining about declining public access with everything that's going on around the government. So, and I look at ours, and even though we do have good amount of public land, a lot of hunters still complain about not seeing deer. And, well, that was number two. The shrinking habitat is causing that. So even though we have some good public access, the habitat's poor. And what I'm looking at is 90% of bucks shot in Michigan are on private property. 80% of does are shot on private property. I'm kind of at the point where, and they've been saying this forever, we're heading towards a European style of hunting, which it's a rich man's sport is kind of what we're getting at with that. It's just, if you don't have private property, I mean, your odds of being a successful hunter are pretty low.
The story of the haves and the have-nots.
I mean, I'm not saying it's not impossible on public land. Hunting has gotten more difficult, and it's not supposed to necessarily be an easy thing. But you can't argue with the fact that this private property owners have no problem, and the stats show it. So, like, what do you do?
Well, I mean, I guess let's look at the first one, which is access, right? Mm-hmm. And we're tremendously blessed here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I mean, we truly have a slice of heaven here, where most of us have the ability to almost walk out our back door, or at least within a 10-minute drive, we can get to, commercial forest land that's public access land. We can get to state land. I mean, anywhere you want to go. The sky's the limit up here, and that's tremendous for us. Shouldn't be saying that on the podcast. People are going to come here.
Right. I don't know.
That being said, the tale of two peninsulas, as it's often said. Whole different world when you cross the Big Mac headed south. Mm-hmm. It is parcelized to beat hell. It is chopped up. It's 10-acre pieces. It's 40-acre pieces. You got 7 guys hunting 40 acres.
Right.
And it's a real issue. And there's a lot of, I'll call it deer politics to navigate within those things, right? And we've seen a tremendous shift in mindset, I believe, of the average Michigan hunter overall. I'll say in the last 10 years, more so than ever before, towards more of a quality management or a deer manager mindset, especially in lower Michigan. A guy, I'll just pick something off the cuff. He works at GM and he's put in 20 years at the company, and he's been furiously saving his pennies because he wants to buy his piece of the rock, right? He wants to go build a little 15 by 15 log cabin, and he's got a 40-acre piece, and he has a 10-acre food plot, and he's got his little tractor, and there's a lot of guys that are doing those sort of things. And they're having good success in some areas. But one of the complaints I hear over and over and over again is it's so hard to hold deer on your property.
Correct. Yep. That's the biggest complaint I hear too.
Yeah, and that's where all the land management techniques come in. Like, how do I one-up my neighbor?
Exactly.
Right? Like, how do I make my bedding better? Like,
it's neighbor wars.
Yeah.
And then the other complaint is the youth seasons and all these. So you got all these neighbors that they're doing incredible work on their property, or having a company do it, and you're creating great deer habitat down there. But then, well, your neighbor's gonna get a chance at that deer, or their kid is, before they come over to your property, and that's their biggest gripe down there. Is from what I'm, not an issue up here, but
how many 10-acre slices of property is a 3.5-year-old 10-pointer going to walk through before he eats a bullet?
Right. Yeah.
Not many.
Nope.
Not many. That's tough. That is really tough. Like, when hunter densities are high like that, I think it's a real struggle to maintain, I'll call it, a more quality buck dynamic.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, across most of the state of Michigan, most of our bucks never see their 3rd birthday. Mm-hmm. I mean, a 5-year-old is like a unicorn.
Right.
And I don't want to make it all about big bucks, right? Like, but there's a reality too. Nobody gets out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning on November 15th and says, "Man, I hope that spike horn shows up this morning."
Right.
Nobody says that.
No.
Now, I'm not shaming people that shoot spikes or forks or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But that big buck obsession that we all have to some extent, that drives us, right? Those miserable mornings, and I'm sure you've had them hunting up here in the UP in November. It's snowing sideways, the wind's howling, it's -10, and you're like, oh, man.
Or it's raining on you.
Yeah. But when you've got that big buck on camera, you get out of the rack, you get dressed, and you go to the woods with a smile on your face.
Yep.
And it's important that you have those animals out there. That it excites people, and people spend money because of big bucks. I mean, let's be real, especially the guys that are developing their properties, right? Mm-hmm. They're not developing their properties because they can't wait to shoot a big fat doe.
Right.
That's not what they're doing.
No.
It's a reality. So how do you begin to have a larger component of quality, mature animals when, like I said, there's 10 acre parcels in a row?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that comes through being selective and making different choices as a hunter, maybe letting some deer pass. And something that's become increasingly popular is cooperatives, where you'll have all these guys that own these small parcelized sections, and they get together and they say, hey, let's all go out and have a couple of drinks and a burger, and let's talk about our values and what's important to us and how we manage our land, and see if we can come to agreement on what we're going to do together. Because instead of fighting over my 10 acres and your 10 acres, well, between all of us in this room, we have 700 acres. And what can we do together to make it better for everybody?
Are you saying is that a new thing you're saying that people are doing down in the...
I don't know
trying to?
How new it is, but I'm seeing more of it.
Okay. Just the concept itself.
Yeah. And I think that's a great thing. I mean, that's a grassroots initiative. It's just neighbors getting together and trying to do right by the resource. I love it.
That would be the best case scenario. Me personally, I'm like, well, it's time to look for land down in the lower. Right. I just want my own property, man. I really do. It's just the way it's headed. And that third problem, significant drop in doe harvesting, right? So the other argument that I'll read about, as far as like people are saying we're headed towards European hunting style or system. Well, you have all those, like we said, the highest percentage of deer shot in Michigan are on private property. They're not, and they build this beautiful land for the deer. The deer come there and they're just loving it and they're thriving on it. That's down in the lower peninsula where there's agriculture. You have weather to do that, climate to do that. Sure. They're not harvesting the does though. So they're technically building the best environment for the deer, which the government kind of essentially fails to do in Michigan as a broad look. It's just they're understaffed, whatever you want to argue, budgetary issues. They cannot manage the land what a private property owner can. It's just not going to ever happen.
It doesn't matter what you're talking about. The private sector will always outperform the government.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, that's not arguable. So the problem is they're building this beautiful whitetail land, and they have great healthy herds of deer coming in. They won't manage the deer herd though, with how they should. They're failing to harvest the does, and that's the third biggest problem in America. So people are saying like government might eventually intervene and tell private property owners what they can and can't shoot on their property. That's a concern. That's just something I've read out there. I feel like it's a bit far-fetched, but I mean,
is it?
Yeah, that's you kind of wonder.
So I do want to cycle back to the parcelization, the property thing for just a second. One of the other issues, and this ties in with the does that you're talking about, and this is prevalent in areas of Zone 2, but it's more Zone 3.
Right, yeah.
There are deer densities down there that are knocking on 200 deer per square mile in some areas, and that's the extreme end. Right. I'm not saying broad brush, but it's not uncommon to have 100 deer per square mile, and even that is ridiculous. Because if you take the ag out, right, like let's say that this year we had a horrible drought, and like there was massive soybean crop failure. Tens of thousands of deer are going to starve to death because we're so far beyond the carrying capacity of the land that without that ag that artificially props that herd up, it'd be devastation. Right. Which is concerning to me too, because you know, when I look at herd health, I'm only looking at 3 metrics, and I'm not a biologist, right? I put my boots on the same way that you do. But there's 3 metrics that matter to me. Number 1 is sex ratios and balance. Number 2, distribution of age classes. And number 3, within carrying capacity of the land. Right. Because when you look at any state that is doing deer management well, those are their key points. Those are the things they're doing well. You look at Indiana, you look at Ohio, you look at Iowa, these different places, they're within carrying capacity. Their ratios are much better than ours. They've got a distribution of age class of bucks, which is why people leave Michigan by the thousands and go hunt these other places. Because they go there and they have an experience of a lifetime. They're like, holy cow, this is what it's supposed to be like.
Right.
And, you know, and I'm not saying we can't have that in Michigan, but getting back to the property issue. So farmers, private landowners, have serious deer density problems in Zone 3. And they cannot get enough people to shoot deer. They can't. You know, there's a farmer that I talked to down there 2 years ago now, and he used to let hunters come on his land and kill bucks. You know, he was generous with his property. And he got to a point where he's like, you know, I'd really appreciate if you guys would, you know, take a doe first. And people stopped asking to hunt there.
Yeah.
Which is unconscionable to me.
I mean, same as well. I feel the same way. It's like, what? But
Yeah.
that's one of the problems.
Yeah, he's flipping through his phone. I mean, he's showing me pictures. He's got like 130, 140 class bucks, just absolute tanks, you know. And all you have to do is shoot a doe, and I'll let you chase one of these. Oh, no, thank you. What?
Right.
That blows my mind.
Yeah.
But that's where people are at. And access to these farms is also a problem because, and rightfully so, farmers don't want Joe Blow on their land just wandering around, blasting off, doing whatever. And to some extent, you talk to enough farmers, and sooner or later you're going to hear the stories, right? They drove their truck through my soybeans. They left beer cans on my property.
Right.
They wounded and lost 5 deer in 2 days. You know, whatever the case may be. And I'm not saying that we should take the little bit of bad and paint the broad brush, but I'm telling you that's how the public sees it. And that's how the farmer sees it. It's only going to take one bad interaction with a private landowner, with a hunter, and he's going to shut it off.
Well,
no, I'm not having that.
Yeah, and the way society is today, there's no... So that used to be a thing. If you read like books from the early 1900s, DNR and whitetails, that history in that era, it was very common for people to go hunt their neighbor's farm.
Yeah.
That was totally that was a norm of society. Society now, it's so unstable and mental health. There's no way people are just going to let random people come on their property.
Well, and all the legalities and, the liability exposures. Yeah, exactly.
It's just not going to happen. So that's not really an option.
And that's an issue that certainly has to be addressed there. And I mean, you have like the HAP program, the Hunter Access Program, and there's a newer initiative out there called the Hunt Michigan Collaborative, which is headed up by a guy named Brian Farmer. He actually serves on the Lower Peninsula Deer Advisory Team. And they're trying to both recruit new hunters in, as well as assist farmers with instances where they're experiencing crop damage. So he'll bring new hunters out who have never hunted before to these extremely high deer density areas, which is a great experience for them because it's action-packed, right? They're sitting on the field edge, and here comes 25 deer, and they're like, holy cow, this is great. It's a thrilling experience. You know, they're helping the farmer, taking some does off the land. You know, these people obviously get the meat. They pay to have it processed. They're educating people on hunting techniques and field dressing and proper firearm handling, which is all great. But that's a microcosm, right? Like, we have a huge issue that is so much bigger, and God bless him. I don't know if that grassroots initiative is going to be enough on the scale that we need it. I mean, we're to the point down in Zone 3 where we're probably having a conversation about industrial killing of does.
That's what I'm saying. Like, your government is going to get involved one way or another. I hope not. But the number I see is 800,000. What were the 3 things you were talking? So sex ratio, the 3 things you look at: sex ratio, what the land capacity is.
The 3 herd health metrics were keeping the sex ratios as balanced as possible.
Right.
Staying within the carrying capacity of the land, and having a distribution of age classes in the herd.
Age classes, okay.
Yeah.
So the land carrying capacity, that's the one I was thinking of. The number I hear is 800,000 deer a year for Michigan. That's what the DNR sees to make sure we have the correct carrying capacity for what our land has, we have to harvest 800,000 deer per year as Michigan hunters.
So we'll follow that up with a stat that should sit every listener up in their chair. In 2025, 80% of Michigan hunters did not shoot a single doe.
What was that? What percent?
80%.
80%?
So 600,000 hunters, just for round numbers. I think it was a little less. It's like 594,000, something like that. But we'll just say 600,000 for rough math.
Okay.
80% of hunters did not shoot a single doe.
I guess I'm part of the elite 20% then. I shot a doe.
There you go. Yeah. You know, and statistically over time, we've seen borne out through the DNR harvest data that the average Michigan hunter wants 1.4 deer a year. So we'll call it 2 because no one can shoot 0.4, right?
Right.
The average Michigan hunter wants 2 deer. Well, here's the interesting part. And this will come into play later as we talk about one buck a little bit. People want to shoot 2 bucks.
Right.
It's not even a buck and a doe. They want to shoot a buck and then they want to shoot another buck.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got this growing doe issue that is silently turning into a much bigger problem below the surface that people don't realize.
Right.
And I think that there's some cross-section of hunters that just look at it like, the farmers are always whining about their crop damage, but they're making so much money. Look at all the equipment they got. Man, the margins aren't what you think for the small-time farmer. If you're not a corporate-backed 1,000-acre operation, you're working your butt off.
Yeah.
And you're putting so much money back into maintenance and repairs and all those kinds of things and inputs into your acreage. The farmers aren't rich people.
No.
They're not. So that's a misconception there. But the crop damage aspects are very real, very real. And you start to get into the urban environments as well, and you've got human-deer conflict via car-deer collision rates, which is really a public health issue, right? Then you've got deer moving into little subdivisions, things like that, eating all the hostas in the landscape, crapping in the yard and whatever, and the homeowners associations are pulling their hair out because they don't want the deer messing things up. And, that's part of the hunter wheelhouse as well, right? Because we're a management tool. That's what the hunter is ultimately. That's our purpose as a conservationist, is to help manage the resource. And we need to take a really hard look in the mirror, I think, and admit we're failing. And here's a hard pill to swallow. It's not that we're incapable. It's that we're being selfish. We're chasing antlers. It's the bottom line.
I mean, I know we've had hunter decline. They say 30% in 30 years, right? But we still have enough hunters to harvest that many deer. We can totally do it. It's just we don't.
So this might interest you, but one of the things that's come up through the course of conversation with the deer advisory team and with the DNR, why aren't people shooting more deer? And you'll have to forgive me, I don't remember the statistic off the top of my head, but once you get beyond like 3 deer, you're a single-digit percentage point hunter in the state of Michigan.
Yeah, I've heard that as well.
It
it's like 1 to
drops like a
2% of all people across the state of Michigan that hunt actually shoot 3 or more deer.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking the smallest of fractions of people.
Right. I mean, my family last year, between crop damage shooting and then regular deer season here in the UP, I think we wound up with like 21 deer.
Wow.
And that puts us in the 1% column.
That's as a family.
Yeah, as a family. Yeah.
Yep.
I killed 17 in Lower Michigan on crop damage tags.
Okay, yeah.
But anyhow, that puts us in a 1% column. And I'm not saying everyone should be out there killing 17 does. It's realistic for me. I mean, I got 4 boys at home who every 10 minutes are in my fridge eating something because they're hungry again.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Teenagers. And we choose to live that way, right? Like, we would rather eat venison than go buy store-bought beef or whatever else. That's our choice. But it works for us. It may not for other people. I understand that. But with respect to the need to harvest antlerless and the stewardship there, one of the driving reasons that people are not doing it seems to be they don't know how to process their own deer,
Mm-hmm.
and it's too costly to have very many deer processed. I mean, I've heard as high as a couple $100. I've heard, well, actually, there was one guy I talked to, he paid like 350 something. But I mean, that's luxury, smoked, whatever, jalapeno, bacon, venison, jerky sticks, and stuff, carried away.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say $150 to $200 a deer is probably pretty stock standard processing fee. Well, if you start multiplying that out, I mean, let's say you shot 10 deer at $200.
Right. There's no way.
Right. The missus is going to have something to say because, you know, she asked you last year for new kitchen cabinets and look what you're spending on deer.
Yeah.
Right. I get that, and the household dynamics. And right now, I think that disposable income for most families probably isn't very high.
Mm-hmm.
Folks are tightening their belts. You know, they're paying more at the pump. They're paying more at the grocery store. They're paying more for insurance. And that's just the trend, right? Like, inflation's a real issue.
Absolutely. It's
And
huge.
but so when you're asking people to shoot more deer, like, there's a barrier there, because as hunters we've lost our skill set a little bit. Like in my house, we go from hoof to table, all under my roof. I process my own deer. I've got all my own equipment. I do it myself. So for me, it's very cost effective. But for other people, it isn't. And I'm not throwing a dagger at the processors at all. You know, I'm not going to say that, well, you're charging too much and you're creating a problem. Absolutely not.
Well, there's fewer of them too now.
Yeah, they're in business to make money, and processing deer is hard work.
Yeah.
Gosh, I know. They should be fairly compensated for that. And they're providing a good service and charging a fair rate. I don't have a problem with that. But somehow we've got to get through that barrier. And that is a very real barrier for people wanting to shoot more than 1 or 2 deer. It's just the cost of processing the animals.
Yeah. I mean, so the number two or the two things, just to reiterate what you said, was the hunter doesn't know how to process the deer, and then the cost of processing, were the big ones that the DNR said was contributing to people not shooting enough deer.
Yeah, well, it wasn't
their
necessarily
thought
just the
process.
DNR. It was conversation that the deer advisory team had,
Okay.
and conjunction with the
Okay.
department.
I would agree with that to an extent. It's honestly, it's a shift in society, right? 100 years ago, they hunted. That was their food source.
100%.
You know,
the woods was the grocery
yeah.
store.
And now you look at society, and no one 100 years ago would ever guess where what we're in today, right? As far as technology, and they're saying AI is going to take over a third of all jobs in America, like in a year from now. We're talking like, it's insane. And you have grocery stores, you know, the convenience. We're inherently a little more lazy now because of the convenience that of technology that's produced for us.
Oh, we live in the McNation.
Yeah. I mean, so I get that. Well, we are dumber now. For the first time in our history as humans, we've continued to progress as far as knowledge bases goes for each generation. And 2010, something happened. The cell phone, the screen time. So the Generation Z I think I'm a millennial. I don't know exactly all those numbers on that, but Generation Z is the first generation to have poorer tests than the previous generation. Until then, every generation has tested higher than the previous one until now.
Isn't it amazing that with a glorified computer in your pocket, with the internet just a couple clicks away,
One would
and
think.
the knowledge of literally the entire world at your disposal on any subject you could ever ask about,
Yep.
we know less than we ever have.
Yep.
How does that work? You know, when I was a young guy, like, the library was the source, right? Library books.
Books, yeah.
You read.
And if you had access to a computer, it was a rare thing.
Oh, right.
You know?
Yeah, and it's amazing to me how uneducated we are on a plethora of topics. I mean, like we talk about herd health dynamics, you know, stuff like that. There's a lot of people that just don't have a very good grasp of the biology and how things work. But I will say, I think that aspect at least is trending positively. And people have different views on the podcasting world, right? Like some people don't like that. They think it's, you know, some kind of progressive crap or whatever.
That's an older generation.
Yeah. But I think that podcasts and outdoor media to some extent have also contributed very positively to the hunting community by featuring educational content and raising awareness about things. And more people are listening and soaking up that content than ever before. And in that aspect, at least, I think the outdoor media has been a positive.
I would agree with that. Podcasting, in my opinion, is probably in the most positive aspect of it because you're having lengthy conversations and actually getting all the information in,
Right.
rather than not even really hearing about it,
Well,
or watching some highlight reel.
Yeah. Well, and in the digital age, we've changed, right? Like it used to be the brick and mortar sportsman's club, and they were pouring some Miller Lights or whatever, and that's how information was disseminated, was around the bar top at the sportsman's club.
Right, yeah.
Like, there was no other way.
Yeah.
Somebody went down to Lansing and went to a meeting, so you're going to have a sportsman's club meeting, and whatever, your MUCC rep or whoever it is, your Ducks Unlimited rep is going to give a little speech and say, hey, I was in Lansing, and here's the things that were talked about, and these are issues, and outline it. It was all done around the bar top at the brick and mortar sportsman's club. And in the digital age, I think we've begun to see a drastic departure from sportsman's clubs and traditional stakeholder groups because, again, the podcasts are in your pocket. You get in your truck in the morning and you got an hour drive to work somewhere in Lower Michigan, and what do? You're going to put your cell phone in the rack. You're going to give 2 clicks to Spotify, whatever it is you're consuming your content with, and you're going to put on a deer podcast on your way to work. Maybe it's food plots. Maybe it's saddle hunting techniques, whatever it is. And people are going to get that daily dose wherever they are, and they don't need the bar top anymore at the sportsman's club to get the information because it's all right here in the palm of your hand.
Right.
Which is, in ways, a good thing. I do think it detracts from the camaraderie and the social aspect of the hunting fraternity because there was some value in that, getting together at the club with the guys, right? And we're more, I don't know, we're like satellite bucks now, right? We're all over
it's
the
all
place.
on
We're
social.
spread out.
Yeah, it's on social media now.
Social media is the most unsociable thing in the world.
It is. It's awful. It's so bad. It's probably the greatest, and the government loves it because that's where you get your greatest divide of hunters. Everyone gets on there and argues.
Well, and it's a blessing and a curse, right? Because anybody with a Facebook account now has a platform. You got a soapbox.
Yeah.
And some people can manage to do something productive with that and use that for a positive. And then there's other people that, I don't know, they get out of bed in the morning and they just want to fight with everybody. Like, you get all kinds. And you take the good with the bad. I mean, I got sucked into some of this stuff myself, right? And maybe you have. You see some stupid comment from somebody online and you're like, oh, that's such BS. I'm gonna fire back. But nobody wins in that, right? Nobody ever wins a Facebook argument.
No.
It's frivolous.
It's taken away the most beneficial is person-to-person, discussion. And it's taken away from that for sure.
You were talking about what's the government going to do? Getting back, because we had a good rabbit hole there for a second.
Yeah, we went off.
What's the government going to do? Well, I can tell you what the government's already doing. USDA sharpshooters.
Yeah, silent hunts. Yeah, they've been doing that for a while.
Yeah, and that's not just urban culls. That's now moving into more rural areas because of our inefficiency as hunters.
Yeah.
And when you bring in USDA sharpshooters, you're talking several $100s an animal that we're paying to the federal government to do a job that we should be doing as Michigan boys.
Yeah. It's Department of Agriculture that runs those mostly.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't like that at all. Not one bit. I do not want the feds doing our job for us. I understand that in some situations, like whatever, let's say you're in Okemos, right, and the houses are all stacked on top of each other. You can't turn Joe Bob and his Stormy Cromer loose with his 30-30. Obviously. No. I get that.
Yeah.
But it would seem to me that there would be a way, if the state of Michigan wanted to put together a group of well-vetted, say FBI background checked sportsmen that passed the marksmanship test and did all these things. Use our people to do the job.
They tried it in Iron River. Didn't work.
Yeah?
Do you have, like, the last several years they were having a urban problem with deer?
Iron Mountain?
Maybe it was Iron Mountain.
Because they had the Iron Mountain City deer hunt for a long time.
Maybe it was Iron Mountain.
And they had the deer park there.
Yeah. Ironwood, Iron River, Iron Mountain.
One of the irons.
Yeah. But anyway, so they tried that, but it wasn't working. And it was funny because I talked to the guy down there because I was going to go do it. They had like a earn a buck. I think if you shot 3 or 4 does, maybe you only had to shoot 2. Whatever the case. You had to shoot a couple does, and then you had an opportunity to shoot a big buck.
There's some big ones
There's
walking
some big,
around.
yeah. They're well fed. But when I talked to him, he's like, yeah, if you can shoot your bow, because it's archery only, right? That was the stipulation. You're not shooting firearms anywhere near city limits. So it's archery only. I think you had to hunt out of a stand to further increase, less
Elevated
of a
platform.
Yeah. So that way you're not shooting straight out and your arrow's going somewhere else. It at least has a angled trajectory. But you show up to the hunting shop in town, and all you got to do is just, if they can see you pull your bow back and shoot an arrow at a target, you're good. So, I mean, as far as vetting goes, they're just going to say budget. Who's going to pay for that? If you want hunters to do it and be properly background checked and all this stuff. So, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how you, in the city limits, because they tried it with hunters and they had some participation, but it wasn't enough.
Well, I'll go out on a limb here, and this is going to be a pretty controversial topic. People might absolutely blow up your DMs about this one. I think unless we dramatically change our mindset and we really bear down on harvesting does as hunters during regulation hunting seasons, I think eventually all roads lead to some kind of a wildlife management LLC coming to be. And, we have tons of individuals all around the state of Michigan that are, prior law enforcement, ex-military, whatever else, and just some great outstanding civilian shooters too, right? Long-range guys. It would not be that hard to put together something like that with some basic guidelines working in conjunction with the state of Michigan, accredited, certified, whatever, and literally have guys traveling around the state that are paid to kill deer. That, I think, is a possibility in the future if we don't change, because we can't just not manage it, and it's already out of control, and at some point it's going to hit critical mass. What that is, I don't know. And people love to throw out the insurance companies, and I'll do it too, just for conversation's sake. How much crop damage insurance is Michigan Farm Bureau going to pay out? How many claims for car deer collisions are the auto insurance companies going to pay out? And sooner or later, they're going to come to the Michigan DNR and they're going to say, you're failing to manage the deer herd, which is resulting in catastrophic expenses for our companies, and you need to do your job. And the DNR is going to rightfully say, well, we're trying, but, the hunters, they just don't do it.
Right.
It puts a DNR between a rock and a hard place. And then what do? You got to start looking for a private option. And I think that's a Wildlife Solutions LLC or something like that. I mean, what other choice are you left with? Because we can't bring in the USDA and pay them $350 to $700 an animal to shoot thousands of deer. We can't do it. And I sure as hell wouldn't want my license dollars or any kind of, Pittman Robertson money, anything like that, funding that. As a sportsman, I would not want that. I don't want to see killing deer for profit either, because then we're hearkening back to market hunting, right? We've already been there.
Right.
We've seen what that's done to us. That's the whole reason that we have licenses, that we have hunting organized and structured the way it is today, is because of the failure of market hunting. We can't dip our toe in that pool. And then the question becomes, well, then what's your solution, Jordan? Well, my solution is that we try our best to continue to educate Michigan hunters on the absolute necessity of taking antlerless deer.
I like that idea best.
If you're going to call yourself a hunter,
Yeah.
it is implied that you are a steward. And stewardship implies responsibility. So going out and chasing your big buck, that's not really responsibility. That's fun. Whacking does is responsibility. It's work.
Right.
It's doing your fair share. And if we want our hunting traditions to continue and to not see things like industrial killing of does by a private company, the choice is simple. we have to do the job, or eventually someone else will.
I do think that is the best option. I do think it's happening now. It's going to take probably a couple decades because we're talking educating the next generation of hunters.
Right.
And the problem is the older generation is, I'm not trying to like has not everybody, right?
Sure.
But in a generality, it is going to be shifting the mindset of the future hunters of Michigan to, hey, the does need to be shot, and it's a good thing to shoot them, and this is why. But do you have time though with those couple of decades? I think we do. I don't know. I'll push a little bit back on. I don't know necessarily what the deer problem is in Michigan, right? Because here's the biggest thing, and this is my biggest gripe with all of the controversy, is you don't know the number. We have an idea, but you don't know an exact number.
How many deer do you have?
How many deer do you have, and where are they at? Because not every single spot down in the zone 3 is this devastating doe problem. So is it bad in some spots? Yeah, it is. But how bad is it based on numbers?
So here's how I think that we handle that, and I'm glad that you brought up that concern, because that's a concern that I've heard echoed from hunters around the state. Like, oh my gosh, we can't be tearing up the does here. We don't have any does. Well, I'm not saying that we should have some blanket statewide, doe murdering going on. That's not where I'm at all. I believe in DMU level management. And quite frankly, I mean, our DMUs in the UP are huge. I'd like to see those become smaller, but that's another conversation.
Yeah.
I don't want to say broad brush, we just need to slaughter does. We need to slaughter does where we need to slaughter does, and we need to lay off where we need to lay off.
Right.
I mean, that's sound science, right? And that's taxing on the department resources to some extent, because the smaller you get with your scale of management, the more intensive it is. It's man hours, it's fuel, it's getting out there and putting muck boots on and doing the work to really assess the population rather than simply looking at computer models, right? And Michigan hunters, I think, are really hungry for that more boots on the ground, less computer-oriented management from the department. I think that, and it's a juxtaposition, right? Because we live in the digital world, like we talked about. I mean, we're staring down the barrel at e-tags now, and you got apps on your phone. You check in your deer. Everything's going digital. But at the end of the day, I think that the nature of biology is getting your boots dirty. I don't know if we can ever get away from that and truly do it right. But I agree with you. We need to tailor our management approach to the region, to the area. I'm not going to tell you that we should go up and queue in a county and hand out 6 doe tags per person. That would be utterly ignorant.
Yeah.
But maybe down in Menominee, we could probably do that. So you got to tailor it. But
when I talked to my buddy Tim Riley, he's a wildlife biologist in the Grayling region. So I told him my thoughts on it. I was like, the population census on wildlife in Michigan in general, and my whole solution behind this, and I guarantee will be there eventually. It's a budget thing for now. Drones, thermal drones. There's states that are already using them. They're incredibly accurate. You still have to have a boots on the ground biologist that's operating it. So if hunters are like, oh, I want to see it. Look, they're way understaffed. We have like half the biologists that we would need in Michigan, probably maybe even less than that.
Right.
Same with COs. I mean,
for sure,
the poaching thing is a whole other number of deer that's never spoken about.
Absolutely.
And it goes undiscussed. But drones would be the answer to an accurate census with what we have personnel wise to an extent. I mean, this would take a lot of really permissions from the government to
you'd have to grid search it
to allow that, but they already use them in forestry. All right, when I was in grad school at Michigan Tech for forestry, they have $10,000 drones. Foresters are using these, and we use ArcGIS Pro. It's the computer software. It's far more capable than any human will ever could ever fathom. So just the software program itself. But you send your drone up, you have a canopy of these trees, and it's not only telling you the age, structure of the tree, the species. You're able to map all this out, the heights of the trees, so foresters can go in and know which trees they're harvesting, and way less time, way more efficient, far more accurate. So that's my push. Like, if we can in the future get thermal drones, whatever, doing our census, that you can find the age structure of a deer just off these images. The technology is so far advanced. You're not only just knowing if it's a buck or doe, you're kind of knowing what age class it is to an extent.
Well, sure, especially if you catch them, spring, summer, when they still got that velvet on. There's a lot of good blood flow through the antlers. I mean, that shows up on thermal in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this is like a futuristic hope of mine, but for now, we do what we can with what we have.
I think you could see some dual purpose crossover there too. I mean, obviously there's implications for DNR law enforcement for search and rescue with thermal drones.
Oh yeah.
And I could see definitely plugging that in with monitoring forest fires. Of course, the DNR also has, firefighters, wildland firefighters. I mean, it wouldn't necessarily just be a one-dimensional tool. I think that's something that the department could leverage in a lot of aspects of what they do in natural resources. Could be very good.
And they already use them to an extent. I mean, I know for certain moose and wolves, I think. A lot of it's helicopter operations, but there's some drones somewhere involved in our. It's just very few, and it's such
a couple of them. Yeah.
I'm just hoping over these next generations of people going through the DNR, younger people, that becomes a thing. And there's caveats to all of it, right? I mean, but in the Coast Guard, if you flew in a helicopter, you were not allowed to hunt on that day, and this is Alaska in general, right? You have to wait 24 hours. So if, as far as concerns go of it, I could see the abuse of that. But sure. That's human nature, and you're going to have bad apples no matter where you're at.
Oh, for sure. So there's always people that are going to try to find loopholes and abuses, but I'd like to believe that, most people are not going to do those things.
Mm-hmm. But that was off on my tangent. That's just a hope of mine. But back to the agenda. So what we can do. So our regulations is about all we can do as far as, making things better. Personally, parent is my biggest thing, is parent your kids. And that's going to be the best thing you can do as an average hunter that's not involved in the politics of things and volunteering. But for state regs, the biggest things on the agenda this year coming up that I've read, and correct me if I'm wrong on these or if I'm missing some, the 1 buck tag, reinstating the muzzleloader season in the Lower Peninsula to an actual muzzleloader season, managing does based on a DMU rather than zones, they're talking about moving the rifle season back. Is that true?
There's been some discussion about that, yes.
And then removing the bait ban in the Lower Peninsula. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you want to start with the 1 buck tag.
Wherever you want to dive in.
Yeah, let's go there. So it's on the agenda still, right? It's still on the table. This could pass.
Yeah,
the NRC could pass the 1 buck tag.
And there's the online world abounds with rumor, right?
I have no idea what the NRC, like we were discussing before we started, but they're rotating through there. Like Google can't even keep up with it, with who the NRC members are in Michigan. But so I have no idea like what the chances of this passing, or you hear everything.
Well, I will tell you this: in the decade plus that I've been involved in natural resources work, deer advocacy, deer management, this has been the wildest year I have ever seen.
Me personally too, and I'm just an outsider looking at it.
It's been incredible. And I do mean that kind of in a bad way, because there's been a lot of turmoil, there's been a lot of stress, there's been a lot of problems that we've had to work through, not only with the DAT, but I mean the department is juggling different moving parts, the commission is juggling different moving parts. You got the legislature that's doing things.
Yep.
Like there's all these moving parts, and they're not always moving in unison, or they're at times moving in opposition of one another.
Oh,
which makes it so difficult.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, I guess I'm kind of a simpleton like this, right? Like I just look at the facts, the data, the science. What makes sense? What's good for our deer herd? Let's just do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not that simple. You know, you're talking about the social impacts, you're talking about the economic impacts, you're talking about political impacts, all of these other factors that influence it. And do I like it? No.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think it should influence it? No. But does it?
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And, you know, the more hands you get in the kitchen, the harder it is to cook.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you've ever stood around, and I don't know how big your kitchen is, my kitchen's not all that big. And my wife and I are in the kitchen working together. It's pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
We just move around each other, and she's cutting something, and, you know, I'm putting ingredients in the pot, whatever it is. We flow together. Now you put 8 people in my kitchen, it's going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be tripping over each other. Somebody's going to fall on a kitchen knife. Somebody's going to spill the pot.
Right.
You know, somebody's going to come by and put more garlic in the soup after I already put garlic in the soup.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know. That is kind of a picture of what has happened this year
Mm-hmm.
with deer regulations behind the scenes. Like, that's a look behind the curtain. There are 10 people trying to make the soup,
Mm-hmm.
and it is so incredibly difficult. And obviously, with deer especially being the flagship species of the state of Michigan, there's a lot of passion for these issues. It's the 3-year reg cycle, so it's a big to-do. There's big changes, as you bullet pointed there, on the horizon. So tensions are high.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do believe that all parties concerned do want to get it right.
Right.
But as is always the case, there's disagreement on what's right.
Yeah.
And then there's disagreement on what's feasible.
Mm-hmm.
So with $1, you know, that's been something that has been simmering under the surface really since last year. Our deer advisory team did submit recommendation to the DNR and the NRC supporting going to a $1 system this year, and that passed overwhelmingly.
Mm-hmm.
So between our two teams, Upper and Lower Peninsula, the recommendation passed with a cumulative 74% support, so exceeding a supermajority by a long shot,
Mm-hmm.
which really spoke to me as well, because the deer advisory teams have all different people, right? We've got school teachers, we've got miners, we've got business professionals. It's an eclectic group of individuals with a lot of different backgrounds, different experiences. And usually you put 10 deer hunters in the room and somebody's going to say that deer aren't brown.
Yeah.
So to see that level of broad spectrum agreement and support for a major deer regulation
It's
change,
positive. Yeah.
that really spoke to me. I'm like, holy cow, we got something here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people believe in this. And I think that spoke to the department and to the commission as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wow, 74% support. That's substantial. So as word got out that the DAT teams had made that recommendation, the internet basically burst into flames that same afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And there's obviously people that are detractors or naysayers with $1, as there would be with any other buck regulation.
Mm-hmm.
But what I have seen so far is overwhelming public support for going to a $1 system in both peninsulas.
Right. That's what I've heard as well. There's always opposition, but unfortunately, the majority of hunters, I think, actually want this.
They do, and you know, one of the biggest pushbacks that we hear, usually right off the top, is, oh, this is just a small minority of elitist Sitka boys that are just wanting to push their big buck agenda on everybody else. And that's not at all the genesis of this, or whatever drove, you know, our advisory team to make that decision. Mm-hmm. We're looking at it much more through the lens of a herd health dynamic.
Right.
Again, balanced sex ratios.
Yep.
If we go to a $1 system, your combo tag is now going to be 1 antlerless deer and 1 antlered deer.
Mm-hmm.
1-to-1 harvest ratio.
Right.
That's great.
That's
if we could
great.
get everyone in the state of Michigan to shoot 1 doe, do you know where we would be?
Yeah, it'd honestly be incredible.
It would. It
Yeah.
truly would. So then you go to metric number 2, distribution of age classes. Well, most of our bucks don't see their third birthday. Well, if you start saving some bucks on the front end because people can only take one, and you're going to save a few more bucks because people are psychologically making different harvest decisions. You know, say it's opening morning and here comes that basket 6 and you're like, what do I want to do here?
Right.
And maybe while you're deciding, your shot window vanishes. Or maybe you decide to pass that deer. You're going to see a higher survival of bucks due to hunters making more judicious decisions as well. And when you can put more bucks on the landscape and increase buck survivability, then you're going to see that distribution of age classes, which is great. And then you're going to see breeding phases that are more like what you're seeing in Ohio or Illinois or other places like that, where bucks are actively competing with one another. They're running, they're chasing, they're fighting, they're doing all these things. They're acting like deer. They're being normal. They're responsive to calls. They're responsive to rattling. And if you can keep your ratios in balance, your breeding window is going to be really tight. You're going to have a couple of weeks, basically, and it's going to be super intense, and it's going to be done.
Right.
And in the northern regions, like here in the UP, I mean, we desperately need to tighten up our breeding window. We've got bucks breeding into January and February, which is just disgusting. 50% of those late barn fawns are never going to recruit successfully the following year into the herd because they die in the winter.
Right.
But anyhow, and then you're talking about number 3, which is carrying capacity, and that ties back to the antlerless. If we're taking antlerless out of the habitat, especially if you can front load your antlerless harvest, like I like to take a doe with a bow early on. First week of October, like that's what I'm about. I want a big, fat adult doe first week in October. Thwack. What's the biological benefit of doing that? Well, number 1, all the food that you're saving in the environment, because that big old nanny doe is going to eat a lot of food between October all the way into, when our deer go into their deer yards, things like that. So there's a nutritional savings. Now all the other younger does in that group have a little more food. Less mouths on the landscape is good. The second thing you're going to do is that's now one more doe that the bucks don't have to breed.
Right.
So when you're reducing the breeding stress on your bucks, you're increasing buck survivability, which is fantastic. And all of that just works together in concert. And that's a glimpse behind the curtain. I mean, we could have an hour's worth of discussion just about this, but I just want people to understand that the genesis of one buck was never about creating Ohio in Michigan.
Right.
That's not what we're trying to do.
No.
Now, I will say this. If you satisfy those 3 herd health metrics, your herd is balanced, it has age structure, and it's within carrying capacity, the direct result of a healthy herd is what? Bigger, better bucks. And no one's going to be mad about that.
No.
We all want that.
But that's not the main purpose of it.
Correct.
It's just a result of what can potentially, hopefully happen. And
Absolutely.
what we've seen from other states that have done this, Indiana's the one example that I've read about, and they did this back in the early 2000s. And it ended up working out great. It took a few years, took a while, but it does have kind of those, more or less, those dynamics that you're looking for. The opposition, though, of the 1 buck tag, it's a fear, more or less. DNR's worried that might generate less licensing revenue, which, if it could. So the other argument, too, is everyone says, like, well, only 5% of the people shoot 2 bucks anyway, so what's it going to do? And I get that argument. I totally do. But here's the thing. You won't know if it works until you've tried it. We've already been trying this, what we're doing now. It's not working. It's the mindset thing.
Well, there's some huge chasms that we can get into with just those 2 data points. But before we do, the first thing that I'll rebuttal with is, can anyone show me, and no one has to date, I'm just going to throw it out there on the table for the listeners, can anyone show me the biological benefits of a 2 buck harvest system? Why should we continue doing what we're doing? Show me the science. Why is it working? By what metrics? Because when I look at the state of Michigan using the 3 herd health metrics that we discussed, which is sex ratios and balance, distribution of age classes, and within carrying capacity.
Mm-hmm.
In the vast majority of the state of Michigan, we get a failing grade in all three.
Right.
So then why shouldn't we change our management system?
I think the argument is a selfish thing, though. It's hunters saying, don't take away my right of choice for choosing a single or combo license, and don't take away my opportunity of getting to shoot 2 bucks. So, like, would there be less revenue? Would there be, look, I'll call them. I'll call bull crap on that. Like, they're going to go hunt. If you do a $1 tag, they're going to go hunt.
Right.
That's what's going to happen.
If Michigan hunters were going to boycott licenses, they'd have done it a long time
ago.
ago.
There's no way that's going to.
There's a lot of guys out there that blow V8, and they get mad and they say, I won't buy a license. I'll go hunt in Minnesota or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. You're going to pay a $500 out-of-state license fee to whatever, go hunt Nebraska or something because you don't want to pay $40 to hunt Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make any sense.
But a couple other things too that I'm not even sure on because it's not out there. Do you know for certain like what the license would look like? Like, so if they do a $1 tag, does that mean there's no more single tag?
So I'll share 2 things with you. The original proposal, as it was written by the Deer Advisory Team, would be as follows: that the combo tag shall be $1 unrestricted and 1 doe.
Okay.
And the single tag would be suspended. So the
No
only
single
license
tag.
that would be available to purchase would be the combo, which
Okay.
would entitle you to $1 unrestricted and 1 doe.
I like that. I can see why there would be a lot of opposition on that, but personally, I like that.
Right. Well, I mean, there's 2 immediate pushbacks to that. Number one, there's a cross section of guys that are like, oh my gosh, you can't take the APR off of it because everyone's going to blow away all the spike horns. Well, are there going to be some people that do that? Yeah, sure.
Well, people already do that. You can buy a single tag.
Right.
You just have to look at the history on that one. And over time, people, like you said before, tend to put the brakes on.
When you look at the harvest data trends, though, in the state of Michigan over the last 10 years, it shows an increase in people that are self-selecting APR legal bucks.
Yeah.
So do we necessarily need to put a law in that says you must when people are already choosing that of their own accord?
Right. And you don't want more regulation. You don't want to complicate things more. I would advise against having any kind of APR on that.
So that's the first pushback, right? It's like from the APR crowd that's worried about all the young bucks getting blown away.
Mm-hmm.
The second pushback is, well, you're going to force me to buy a combo license? Well, I don't want to shoot 2 deer. I just want to shoot 1 deer.
Right.
Well, now we're going to have the stewardship conversation again.
Yeah.
You need to shoot a doe.
And yeah, you said 80% do not shoot a doe. So
Right.
that would be your opposition.
Right.
Well,
And my thing is, and this is personal experience, right? Years ago, they made the base license mandatory. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And I was one of those guys that I'm like, oh, but my liberty.
I know.
You're going to make me buy this product I don't want to buy? Like, I don't really care about squirrels and rabbits and partridge. That's not really my thing. I'm a diehard deer guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to buy that. Why should I have to buy that? This is extortion.
Well, you have to buy it for anything.
Yeah, you cannot buy a deer
Any
license
license.
unless you buy the base license.
Unless you buy the base, yeah.
So I was madder than hell, right? But here's what happened. I've got sons at home, and I started as a boy with small game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, Dad, can we go squirrel hunting? Well, yeah, actually, we can. Sure, grab the 22s. Let's go for a walk in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself doing those things with my sons. Not a ton, but some.
Right.
And my attitude was, well, I already paid for the license. I may as well take advantage of it.
That is a good point. I see where you're going with this.
So then
Yeah.
when I tell you, now you got to buy the combo tag and it's $1, 1 doe, you're going to scream at me and say, you're making me buy something I don't want. This is ridiculous. What are the chances that a good percentage of those hunters are like, well, I paid for it.
Yeah.
I may as well get some venison.
If you're going based off of how that base license rolled out and everyone bought it.
There's some precedent there.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I just don't know if they'll actually use it to shoot the doe. But like I said, I'll go back to it again. You're not going to know unless we try it.
Right?
You have to try it.
got to do something because clearly what we're doing isn't working. So that's the foundation of how the original recommendation was written, was $1 unrestricted, one doe, and eliminating the single tag. However, we found out well after the fact that there is a legislative impediment, supposedly.
That's what I was reading too.
To being able to eliminate the single tag.
Right. I heard it was some kind of legal jargon. And the DA of Michigan sent her posse down to the NRC meeting, and people asking her, so what's the deal with it? Is there some legality where you can't do this? And she had no idea what was going on. She had no
the Attorney General.
Yeah, her assistant or whatever. So,
I believe, and this is just my opinion, right? And I am not an attorney. I'm not a judge. I have no legal expertise. This is just a layman's opinion. And I'm deriving this from the powers enshrined to the Natural Resources Commission, which clearly state that they have sole authority to establish season, manner and method of take, and here's the key word, bag limit.
Right, yeah, that's
I believe that it falls well within the Commission's authority to select or deselect availability of licenses on a given year. And if they want to say, well, we're going to set aside this single tag for a 3-year cycle and see what this does. Like, we're not saying permanently, but for 3 years, we're going to suspend it. Not eliminate, but we're going to suspend. I think that's absolutely within their authority. But opinions vary, and again, I'm not an attorney. So that became a stumbling block. And then it was, oh my gosh, what do we do? How are we going to handle this? I'm talking with the DNR. I'm talking with the commission. I've got some friends that are attorneys, so I talked with them. And one of the proposals that has been circulating now in official channels is what we're calling the $1 patch, which is kind of a backup plan. So the $1 patch would look like this. The combo tag would be $1 with a 3-point APR, one doe, statewide, Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3. And then because they could not eliminate the single tag, to apply a 4-point or higher, I've heard as high as 6 points, to the 6 points on a side.
That's insane.
To the single tag. Basically, the idea being to make the single tag less appealing, and people go, well, I'd rather have the 3-point APR and the doe, so I'm not going to buy the 4-point APR single tag. It satisfies the statutory requirement for still providing the single tag. And for your diehard guys that are, mature buck hunters and they just are not going to shoot a doe, you can still do that. You can buy that single tag with a 4-point APR.
With the single tag, you'd still be able to shoot a doe?
You could.
It'd just have a crazy high APR for a buck, though.
Yeah, like up here, where we are in Zone 1, it would be doe with a bow. So if I bought the single 4-point APR tag, I could shoot a buck with 4 points on the side or higher, or one antlerless deer with a bow.
Huh. So that's what it's. So the original one with an unrestricted tag and suspending the thing is basically off the table.
Yeah, you cannot suspend the single tag is what we're being told. And along the way, some of the powers that be began discussing the need to further restrict the buck tag and not allow the unrestricted option. The rationale being that the combination of the $1 system and the APR system will facilitate growth in age class of bucks faster.
Man, I didn't know any of this. I don't know if I like this. Oh gosh.
Again, this is conversation.
No, I know.
It's not set in stone.
None of this matters. So it matters because this is what people want to have changed. But in the end, it's the NRC that makes the decision.
Absolutely.
Period. So everything we talk about and discuss today, who knows what they're going to decide?
We could end up with $5 tags at the finish line.
Right. And what I was thinking, when you were talking about the $1 tag and the legalities of it, of being able to suspend, sounds to me more or less, because I agree, the NRC was given, it was a proposal G. It is literally from the legislature. The legislature gave them the power to do all these decisions. It sounds to me, that's just one guy's opinion, some stakeholders got some money in someone's pocket and that's where the politics come in. So it sucks. It's kind of disheartening, anytime there might be some kind of progress in it. It's just from politics. And Michigan's been a pretty bad state with politics, to be honest, over the last probably 4 or 5 decades, unfortunately.
What are we? I think we ranked 49th out of 50 for what is it, corruption and transparency.
Yeah, it's so
it's
that's going against us there. But to get back to the new proposal of it or whatever, I just don't like that the APR. I don't like it.
I know a lot of guys that don't, and
you're going to lose hunter recruitment from that.
I'll be honest. I have been vigorously and devoutly, even rabidly at times, anti-APR. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because, 2 of the guys that I work absolutely just hand in glove with deer regulations, and one of which, he's family these days. 10 years ago, I'd have probably gone fisticuffs with him over APRs.
Yeah.
That's how adamantly against it I was, because here's my viewpoint, and there's guys are going to disagree with me. That's fine. Everyone has their own view, but here's mine. Antler point restrictions in the long term do not accomplish anything. Mm-hmm. All you're doing is advancing the age class 1 year.
Right.
So instead of shooting spike horns, 3s, 4s, now you're going to shoot 5, 6, 7, maybe some 8s. Down in zone 3, obviously their bucks can put on antler a lot. Well,
faster. The food sources is a huge thing of it, sure. And I mean,
so in reality, here's what you're going to see in the first year of implementation of an APR. Due to lack of availability, broad spectrum of antler point legal bucks, you're going to see doe harvests start to shoot up, and everyone's like, "Great, we're shooting does. This is good, and we're preserving bucks. This is good." Mm-hmm. Well, in year 2, the doe take is going to start to plateau a little bit, because why? Now there's more APR legal bucks available. You're going to see the buck take start to increase again. Mm-hmm. By years 2 and 3, your doe harvest is headed straight back downhill like a sled. Mm-hmm. And it's dropping like a stone. Why? Because now there's a plethora of APR legal bucks available, and everyone is right back to shooting 2 basket rack bucks and not shooting any does.
Right.
What did we change?
So I would advise the NRC not to do that, honestly, because you don't want to keep doing this, changing every 3 years. You want to find something long term. And if you look at Indiana, they've been doing it for over 20 years, and they like it. I'm not saying it's going to work for Michigan. I don't know that yet. But if you don't try it, we won't know. And that's what sucks. I didn't know that was kind of off the table now. Now I don't even know what
Well, I mean, it's still possible that they could, on the $1 patch, they could theoretically say on the combo that tag is unrestricted, and then put the APR on just the single tag. Mm-hmm. That would incentivize even further.
I would like that. With the combo tag, could you shoot 2 does?
You could.
We always could. Okay.
Yeah,
that wouldn't change.
Cash in your buck tag if you want to.
Okay. Yeah. The other concern was, and this has been a very unclear point of it, is that doe, so you get $1, if we go to $1 tag, it's $1 and 1 doe on your combo license. Can you shoot that doe during rifle season in the UP?
In places that you can do that now?
Yes.
You can continue to do that.
So otherwise, nothing would change. It'd still be...
No, the language in our recommendation very specifically said that all present antlerless restrictions and regulations would remain in place at the discretion of the DNR.
Okay.
So I'll just use our high snowfall zone, for example, because up here, it's doe with a bow only.
Right.
You cannot kill them with a firearm.
Yep.
That would not change.
Okay. I mean, that all sounds great then.
And I've heard, some rhetoric out there on some of the online forums and social media. There's guys out there saying, "Oh my gosh, they want to kill does in the high snowfall zone with rifles." No,
right.
We don't.
No, okay.
That was never the case. Never. That was never even a consideration.
Because I did hear that going around. I'm like, no way would they do that.
No.
So that clarifies it.
I do want to go back to the whole APR thing for a second, though. So here's where I'm gonna talk out of both sides of my mouth. I'm gonna be a politician for a minute. Mm-hmm. I do not want it. Like, if you said, Jordan, we're gonna go whole hog MAPR statewide, we're just gonna do that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that. I don't believe that's an answer. But the combining of $1 and an APR has precedent. The state of Pennsylvania is $1 and an APR.
Mm-hmm.
And that's doing some good things for them. And when you talk to biologists, you talk to people in the deer world, there are often comparisons and parallels drawn between the state of Michigan and the state of Pennsylvania because we're similar.
Mm-hmm.
Probably more similar than most of our neighboring states. When you talk about deer regulations, one of the things I think is very important to think about is hunter demographics. Because you're going to get grandpa who's 72 years old and can't see to count points. Mm-hmm. And you can argue, well, then grandpa shouldn't be hunting. But, if you can put a pile of corn out there for him at 20 yards and he can see, then fine.
Mm-hmm.
There are all different motivations that people hunt. There are all different reasons because we're different people. I love to eat clean organic protein and provide my family with that. That's important for me. That's a driver.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's an upward trend in that. A lot of us are in that mindset as hunters.
I also like to go out and beat the boot leather in the backcountry and find one older age class buck and chase him to the exclusion of all else because personally that is thrilling.
Right.
I love it.
The journey, the adventure, the passion.
It's the timeless battle of predator and prey.
You can't beat it.
But recognizing that, you put 10 hunters in a room. Mm-hmm. They're not all going to have the same answers. Why do you hunt? What's most important to you? Well, this guy says, well, I want meat for the freezer. This guy says, well, I want a trophy buck. That guy says, well, I don't know. It's just kind of fun. I do it a few times a year. I don't really care about meat or a buck,
mm-hmm.
whatever. When you're making deer regulations, you have to take people into consideration, the social impacts, right? The why. And I think that it's a bit of a sacrifice to bring the APR in and apply it to the $1 because you're giving something to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with a 3-point APR, there's a lot of guys that will say it is not that hard to find a deer with 3 points on the side. That is, on average, a 1.5-year-old animal. Like, if you can't find a 1.5-year-old animal, I don't know what to tell you. I hear that.
The UP is a little different, though.
It is. It absolutely is. But I think that it gives those guys that want more older bucks a little something in the pie.
Because you think they're probably the biggest counterpart to this?
I don't know if they're the biggest, but I mean, it's certainly a consideration. Like I said earlier, we're seeing a trend statewide towards a quality deer management mindset, towards managing private property for bigger, better deer, and they're not doing it for does.
No,
right?
They're doing it for bucks. Yeah.
So we have to recognize that, and I'm not saying that should drive policy, but I think it has to be a fair consideration. Hunter demographics, hunter desires,
mm-hmm.
what's the social impact?
That's fair.
And
you can't argue that.
Giving everybody a little compromise and saying, this is something that we collectively can support. Because I sat down and I talked with some of the biggest APR supporters in the state of Michigan. And, one of them, you might know his name, is Lincoln Roan. He is the founder of Michigan Deer Hunters Let 'Em Go, Let 'Em Grow. And they've got tens of thousands of members. Mm-hmm. And Lincoln, a decade ago, was probably the most vigorous, loudest, most passionate advocate for statewide antler point restrictions you've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And Lincoln and I butted heads hard. Today, I would consider us dear colleagues. And, he and I, we sat down, we had a conversation. I'm like, this is where I'm at, Lincoln. This is why. This is mm-hmm. my biological why. This is my social why. And, Lincoln and I came to agreement. He goes, you know what? I'll support $1 because I think it's better than where we're at. Now, I'd love to see $1 with an antler point restriction. You know me, Jordan. I want that APR. Mm-hmm. He says, and I'm going to push for that. He says, but even if we end up with just $1 unrestricted, I still think that's a win. Mm-hmm. And seeing that kind of collaboration, not just between, Lincoln and myself, but guys with opposing views all across the state has really been something special. To see everybody kind of come in and say, well, I'm an APR guy. Well, you're a $1 guy. Well, I'm a earn a buck guy. Well, I'm a $4 guy. But none of us like what's going on. And their personal handpicked regulation may not be on the table, but I think there's a recognition that $1 in some form is on the table. And can we live with this? Can we compromise this? Can we all be happy with this and be confident that this is a step in the right direction? And the resounding answer has been yes.
I could get behind it. I'm not like a huge fan of the antler point restrictions. Not for myself, for my son. I'm not even behind the youth hunt, to be honest.
So you bring up an excellent point, and I'm remiss for not mentioning this. My understanding, and again, what comes out in May.
Right, it's up to them, not
right,
us.
the commission decides.
Yep.
But my understanding is that there has been discussion about APR exemptions, specifically for young hunters, 17 and under, and then for seniors.
Interesting.
So all of us able-bodied fellas in the middle, we get to suck it up and work our butts off and earn our antlers.
Oh. So you kind of have gone through literally every scenario of satisfying every group.
We've tried. We
That's
really
pretty.
have.
Honestly, that's really impressive. Hearing all this come out, all right, so you put an antler point restriction on it to satisfy those folks. You do the $1 tag to satisfy the majority. You put what did you say? Less exemptions for the younger and the. I mean, at that point, you're literally satisfied. I mean, who's left to?
There'll be somebody.
There will be, but I'm the way I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, it doesn't sound that bad. I don't, because we already, if you buy your combo license, you already have to shoot a 3-point antler on one side or more,
Right, for
so
the UP, that's same.
Yeah, nothing would change there for me.
I'm going to do the same thing I've always done. I'm going to go out that first week of October. I'm going to get that doe with my bow.
Yeah.
And I'm going to spend the rest of the year with one 3-point on a side buck tag in my pocket. And I'll be happy.
The only concern I have here for all of that is, and you've kind of solved one of them, if it happens, right? These are just ideas. We have no clue what they're going to say.
Sure.
But my biggest concern is our biggest growth in new hunters is women and children. So if they can't shoot a smaller buck, I don't know. You might have less hunters for a little bit in certain areas, maybe in the UP, but we're already kind of there. We have a lot of other problems too. But that would be my concern. It's just women hunters not getting an opportunity to shoot a smaller buck if they choose to, and then the youth. But if they did exemptions, it's not including women, and I think women in America are your greatest percentage of newer hunters, or they make up like 40%.
The fastest growing demographic in the entire hunting world is female hunters with crossbows.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Like I said, I have no clue if it would change anything or not, but I mean, it sounds like it's in the right direction, at least.
We're certainly making, our best effort to accommodate everybody and do something that's biologically sound and be as, I hate to say this because it kind of sounds like, the purple-haired people or whatever, but as inclusive of all demographics as possible.
Yeah. Well, that's the hunter's biggest, honestly, threat to ourselves is just our disagreements with everything.
Our divisiveness.
Yeah, that's we shoot ourselves in the foot. We're our first worst enemy, and then after that, it's politics.
Right.
That's really it.
That's the great thing about deer.
Mm-hmm.
They're not blue. They're not red.
Right.
They're brown.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. We'll kind of wrap this up soon. We've been going for a while, but I want to just touch base. So I think with the $1 tag, if this all happens, however way they lay it out for us, whatever, I'll be behind it. The DMUs, managing does based on DMUs rather than zones. Is that something that actually could happen? I mean, I know it's a discussion.
Yep. So there was a lengthy discussion and proposal within the DAT for antlerless management, antlerless quotas, based on DMU. And my understanding is that's being evaluated and kind of reworked within the Department of Natural Resources, and there is a ton of interest from the Natural Resources Commission in moving forward with some variation of that model in the near future. Now, will they give it to us for 26? I don't know.
Right.
But by all indications, it could be 26, and if not, it will be 27. The feedback has been very, very positive.
Well, I mean, literally everyone does this. You have county-specific regs or DMU-specific regs. Every other state there is. It makes sense. Mm-hmm. There's not the same amount of deer in this county versus that county.
Right.
And it's been like that forever. I can't believe it has taken Michigan this long to even consider it. It's embarrassing.
Sure.
So, but the biggest concern with that is just not knowing exactly how many deer in those. So I'm certain that's something that they have to figure out before they can pass that.
Yeah, I would imagine they're working their way through that.
Figuring out, okay, if we do this, well, what would be the correct number? We don't want everyone to hate us. So that's cool that that's hopefully happening. And then the last couple things here was I've heard reinstating the muzzleloader season in the Lower Peninsula.
Yeah, there was some appetite for that, and I'm not really sure how that's going to land, but that has been a discussion. I know there's a lot of folks in the Lower Peninsula that expressed some measure of disdain for the loss of tradition,
mm-hmm.
The black powder muzzleloader season. And I think there was some negative sentiment about what people called second gun. Overall, I don't know. Did the 350s and the 450s really decimate the deer? Well, no.
No.
The harvest stats don't show that.
But the one concern, this is all I've got on it, is just the late season antlerless hunts. There's potential you're shooting bucks that don't have antlers.
Yeah, for sure.
There's got to be a point in time where you got to stop harvesting deer and take the pressure off of them.
I can sympathize with that for sure, and that'll get into some of our other discussion here. But I would push back a little bit on that it's the job of the hunter, right, to be sure of your target.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's hunter safety 101. Identify your target clearly, be sure of your target and what lies beyond.
Yeah,
if
can't
you
argue with that.
know it's a doe, then you don't shoot it.
Yeah.
To me.
Mm-hmm.
There's a personal responsibility there. That's a matter of ethics. Now, can mistakes happen? Sure they can.
Mm-hmm.
Most guys will tell you at some point in their career they shot a button buck or they shot a shed head, right?
Mm-hmm.
It happens. But I think the onus is on us to do our very best to make sure it doesn't.
Mm-hmm. And I don't see that the extended season has actually solved the problem.
No.
I don't know. I just don't. We have such long hunting seasons in Michigan, and I get it. It gives us more opportunity, and not everyone has the same work schedule as the other guy and this and that. So it increases or should increase hunters having all those seasons. But
well, if you include crop damage shooting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So regulations were passed last year that actually allows damage shooting to commence when farming operations commence.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're putting seeds in the ground, you can start shooting deer.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking
that's summertime, and that's risky too.
So you got May, June, July, August for crop damage.
Yeah.
Then you got special seasons in September, October, November, December, January.
Yeah. I'm not big on the crop damage tag thing. I get there's some people out there but it's obviously not solving anything. And I tend to think it might do more harm than good, but the biggest complaint down there is there's too many deer. But, well, until you can tell me exactly how many, I'm just kind of like, all right, well. But I got a little off topic. But the muzzleloader thing, I see it as a good thing, but only if you're getting rid of those late gun seasons. It wouldn't make sense to me to reinstate a muzzleloader season if afterwards you can go
take the big guns back out.
Yeah, I'm like, well, what's the point? Just keep it as it is. I don't know. To me, it doesn't affect me either way because I muzzleload in the UP, and that's all we have.
Part of the conversation there, centered around dialogue that the deer advisory team had with Dr. Mike Tonkovich. If you're familiar with him, he was the head deer biologist for many, many years up until 2025 in Ohio.
Okay.
And he is a firm believer in what he said is less is more policy with hunting season.
Mm-hmm.
He said if you decrease opportunity, you increase demand. And if your goal is to increase antlerless harvest, he says, you've done everything under the sun for years.
Yes.
Extended seasons, early seasons, late seasons, extended early and late seasons,
Right.
all the above, $5 doe tags.
Yep.
Where's it gotten you?
Mm-hmm.
He said, I'm going to suggest to you, you start tightening that down and shortening the window of opportunity, because then people are going to have to decide, well, do I want a freezer queen this year or not? Because if I do, I got whatever, X, 7 days to do it.
I could not agree more. That is common sense.
For sure.
Let's start using common sense and rationale for all this.
Right.
Because that sounds perfect. The other thing that I'm wondering about is the moving the rifle season back. Mm-hmm. Were they meaning like move it back a week? It's still 2 weeks long, or they just extend it to 3 weeks and they move it?
So I that was never a official proposal from the deer advisory team, but it has been discussion.
Okay.
Loosely with the deer advisory team, and there's been a lot more side conversations and private conversations between DNR and NRC and some of the DAT and members of the public as well. And it basically centers around this rough idea, and there's variations of this, but this is the one I've heard the most, would be to push the opening of rifle season back statewide to the Saturday before Thanksgiving, and then to shorten it as well, running a total of 9 days.
Okay.
So the rationale there
Thanksgiving
being twofold. Number one, and which is the primary thrust, is the desire to take firearms out of the peak of the rut. Why? Preserving bucks.
Mm-hmm.
That's when they're most vulnerable. And if you look at traditionally the stats in the state of Michigan, more than 50% of total annual harvest for the state happens in the first 2 days of firearms season.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't.
So if we're going to have a conversation again, herd health metrics, you want to create balanced ratios, you want better age structure, all these things, we have to lay off the bucks, and we have to take more does. So that's a mechanism by which that we can potentially reduce buck take, is by removing firearms from the peak of the rut.
Okay.
And if you examine other states like Ohio, for example, it's exactly what they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a pretty long season.
Yeah.
Wisconsin's even shorter. I mean, a lot of states have much.
I think Ohio is a 5-day.
Yeah, there's a majority of states out there have a shorter rifle season than Michigan. We got a long one. So for the Saturday thing though, was that for? I'm just looking at the calendar here. So is that to encourage more hunting then, to have it on a Saturday every year?
Well, if you go Saturday before Thanksgiving every year, running 9 days, you're effectively going to give hunters 2 weekends still.
Mm-hmm.
Which, that was the big complaint when you chop down from 14 days, right? Everyone's like, oh my gosh, we're only going to get 1 weekend. That's terrible. Well, no, you can still get 2 weekends.
Well, if it's the Saturday before, I'm looking. So Thanksgiving's on November 26th. The Saturday before that is the 21st of November. So how would you have? Oh, you would have 2 weekends. You're right. Okay. I see. So it'd still kind of go through our normal end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
That wouldn't be bad.
I know there's a little pushback on that in the UP, especially up here in the high snowfall zone, because guys are like, oh my gosh, what if the big snow comes and I can't even get into my well, that's a risk.
Yeah.
Sure. But I'll also push back on that man, guys got ATVs with tracks, they got snow machines, they got all this stuff, they got snow tires on their trucks.
Yeah.
Them boys are out there hunting anyway.
Well, yeah, bow season too, though. Would that affect bow season at all? Those season changes? It would still continue through?
Yeah, they're talking about leaving bow season pretty much as is.
Okay.
I mean, your late archery take is so ridiculously low, it's statistically irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's something like 3% of the hunters of the state of Michigan, period, even participate.
Right. I mean, it's always been far fewer archers than there are rifle. I mean, it's yeah.
Well,
I love them
both. Up here in the Great White North, you can't use the crossbows during late season, so vertical bows only.
Can we get that changed somehow?
Oh boy, man, the UP Whitetails UPSA guys are going to hang you from a light pole for that.
I can't stand it. Well, then honestly, I'm looking forward to them and when they're done hunting, because that's ridiculous. That's the biggest gripe I have with the UP regs, is not to be able to use a crossbow in December. I shot one deer last year. It was a doe. I shot it in December, and I had to use a compound bow. Why does it? Why does it matter?
I everybody acts like if we legalize crossbows for December, that the migration trails are going to be lined with crossbow hunters like the trenches of World War One, and it's such a intellectual fallacy. It's ridiculous.
It is.
I'm an able-bodied man that is an absolute diehard hunter, and I am not afraid to be cold and uncomfortable and miles from anything. But I will tell you what, if I don't have to be in the woods in December up here, I'm not gonna be.
Right.
It starts to test a man's will.
Right. There's so few people that even bother hunting in December.
Oh,
and
yeah.
to be honest, the deer that are killed probably during December during those migration, they're poachers.
Right.
And we don't know those
Poacher's
numbers.
gonna poach.
Yeah, it's just gonna happen anyways.
Yeah, it's not the tool.
No.
And you want to make the argument that we're trying to protect disproportionately vulnerable deer on the migration route. And my immediate retort is, so then I'm assuming you would be fine if we canceled muzzleloader season. Oh,
Right. Yeah.
Well,
They're overlapping. I mean,
come on. You're gonna tell me during muzzleloader season deer are migrating?
Yeah.
I mean, fair is fair, right?
They 100% are. The second the snow falls at our camp, it's within 1 or 2 weeks. They're there. They're showing up. They're migrating.
Yeah. Well, I hunt a lot in the western Michigamme highlands and up in the high country. It makes its own weather up there, kind of like up on the Keweenaw Peninsula, Quincy Hill. And I've seen years where beginning of the second week, they're coming down.
Yeah. It happens so fast.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
And it's a unique thing that people don't realize is the history of white-tailed deer, essentially came from the eastern coast where there was a more temperate climate, and they didn't migrate. This is not a normal behavior of deer. It's not genetic. It's an adaptive trait. As they migrated towards the west and north, and they got into this weather, that became a trait that they had to adapt to. So migrating 50 miles for a white-tailed deer isn't normal biology across America, but it is very much a huge thing in the Upper Peninsula. And the Great Lakes region itself has its kind of own weather system. I mean, it is far more unique than any part, really. Sure. America in general. I mean, we have tornadoes in America. Most the other countries don't experience that stuff. The weather in general is just a huge thing that it's hard to say, well, that's such a big factor. It's always been a big factor.
Well, something I think is important to take into account here, and a lot of the old heads just beat the living hell out of this point. They'll say this, well, we're different. Okay. Well, I can find trophy class whitetail bucks in Alberta and Saskatchewan.
Mm-hmm.
What's your excuse? Well, we're just different. I said, well, here's the thing. The core principles of deer biology are the same in Vermont as they are in Alabama, as they are in Wyoming, as they are in Michigan. The core tenets, going back to the herd health metrics, they're the same.
Yeah, a whitetail biology in Michigan is the same as a whitetail biology in Texas.
If you do the core things right, you're going to have a healthy herd. You're going to see mature bucks. Win, 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 win. Mm-hmm. And we're not doing things right. And we haven't been doing things right. And that's why people are unhappy with what they see. Mm-hmm. And, there is nuance, right, regionally. Mm-hmm. Like I'll concede that. There's nuance. But the core principles are the same. And one of the things that I've watched really happen in the last 3 years is the transition of influence, right? Because a lot of the old heads forever, they had kind of a death grip on deer management in the UP, and they were the only voices that Lansing ever heard. Mm-hmm. Whatever. I'm just going to throw out a name, and I hope somebody doesn't have this name, but whatever. Johnny Heikkinen comes down to Lansing and says A, B, and C, and he's 68 years old, and his credibility is assumed. Mm-hmm. Well, the reality is maybe Johnny Heikkinen just hunts from a heated box blind in front of a food plot on his 20 acres and he never hunts anywhere else. And maybe that land is crap.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the surrounding land doesn't have good cover. It's not good deer habitat. So, of course, he's going to paint you a picture that it's doom and gloom and there's nothing left in the UP and it's terrible.
Right.
A guy 15 miles down the road like you takes his bow, climbs up in a tree, whacks a big old fat doe, has a great season. You're loving life. You're thankful. You're happy. You saw a deer. You were successful. You're going, I don't know what Johnny's talking about. We had a good year.
Mm-hmm.
And the UP has always been pocketed. Historically, it's been pocketed. The only exception to that was 94, 95, which was a black eye for deer management for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were way beyond carrying capacity. But I think that now more than ever, the way our UP deer herd has changed, and a lot of this is habitat related, some of it's predator load, different things, different factors. If you're a guy who just wants to go, sit in your heated blind, dump out your corn, and wait for a 30-point buck to come by, you're not getting one.
No, that's a fallacy.
Those days are gone.
Right.
And the guys that are successful year in and year out are stomping the ground. They're putting on the miles. They're doing the homework. They're running the trail cams. They're doing all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And if you examine the history of hunting, it was a nomadic endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Native American culture, they didn't sit in one spot. They moved.
And then hunting was a difficult task.
Right. As the patterns in nature changed, the Native Americans changed with it. And just one example, maybe one year you got a great acorn crop, and if you know where there's a good acorn flat in the western Upper Peninsula, boy, are you going to have a banner year.
Mm-hmm.
And you go back there the next year, maybe not.
Right.
Maybe it's a ghost town. You see 2-3 deer walk through, they're just not there because things change. And I think the hunters in our age class, I'll say 50 and under, have a much different mindset in our approach to hunting. We're willing to adapt. We're willing to work. We're willing to pay in. And I would say we are probably better educated hunters in a lot of aspects than our forefathers were, by virtue of the fact that we have access to more information than our forefathers ever did.
Right, I would agree with that.
And technology, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're kind of Deer Team 6 these days.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got Onyx Hunt, you got Spartan Forge, you got cellular trail camera networks that offer you 24-hour surveillance. We got cutting edge camo. We got great, base layers and socks and smart wool and all this stuff. We can go in earlier. We can stay longer. We know what's going on in the woods. And all those factors combined puts us in a position to be more successful than ever before. Mm-hmm. But I think it's fair to say deer hunting in the Upper Peninsula has changed.
It has. I think that's the biggest controversy around it, and I'm totally fine with how it is now. The only thing I wish we had was a greater grip on our predation.
Sure.
That's the only thing. Otherwise, I mean, nothing's going to change for me here. It's a new era. There's less deer. There will be less deer for the foreseeable future. That's just how it's. The UP is a harsh environment. That's just what it is in a nutshell. And the habitat loss has, there's only a certain amount of deer that land carrying capacity. That's what it comes down to. And then the predators. So for me, I think people are still having a hard time swallowing the pill that it used to be easier. Why can't it still be? Well, that's over. You just gotta move on.
Adapt or die.
Adapt, yeah. So that's the way I look at the UP. I don't have any real gripes with it other than hopefully someday we can better manage these predators. But the bear tags need to be addressed. Huge. We need to harvest far more bear than we do. And it's not just the government's fault. Hunters need to be involved as well. Trapping, coyotes, what we can, and then hopefully someday a wolf season.
Sure.
But yeah, as far as the UP is,
I'll pose a thought for you here too. We had a pretty substantial, good old-fashioned barn burner UP winter this year, which we haven't, at least in my opinion, in 3-4 years at least. I mean, we're up to what, like 335 inches in the Keweenaw now.
Right. Yeah.
It was a big winter.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of guys in the UP right now that are just wringing their hands going, oh, my God, there's going to be nothing left.
Mm-hmm.
And we are going to pay a price. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But that being said, and this comes back to the buck regulation conversation, right? these guys, some of the old heads are wanting the archery doe tag revoked that we just got back last year. They're going, no. We got to shut it off. We cannot shoot one single doe because the herd's decimated.
Mm-hmm.
And then I say, then let's stop killing 2 bucks.
Yeah.
Oh.
Right.
Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
If you're saying we can't even shoot one doe, I'm going to say you shouldn't shoot 2 bucks.
Exactly.
Because we can't take it, right?
Yep.
For the resource, right?
Yep.
And that just, it creates all kind of cognitive dissonance for them.
Right.
You know, and guys love the second buck tag. I get it, man. I get it. But again, and we talked about this early on, stewardship.
Mm-hmm.
There's a responsibility. It's not about just what we want as hunters. It's about doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. It's about ethical hunting practices, ethical harvest choices, and paying it forward for the next generation. You know, we got to stop thinking less about what we can take and more about what we're handing to our children and their children.
I couldn't agree more. There's so few hunters left in the UP in comparison to the rest of the state. So it's a smaller number of people who are having these disagreements. I want to say it's like maybe 70,000 hunters, the UP, and you know, you have over 500,000 down in the lower. So, you know, I feel for them. I'm sorry if these changes do happen and you're not happy with it, but overall, it'd be good. I don't see all these things that we talked about necessarily helping the UP too much, just because we have such a smaller deer herd compared and a smaller amount of hunters in comparison to the Lower Peninsula. I'm not saying it won't help. I'm just saying it won't help as much as it will help the Lower Peninsula.
Well, I think something that needs to be said here, you know, some of our listeners right now might be listening to this going, well, this guy just thinks if we just make one buck, everything will be, you know, a panacea and there's going to be a booner behind every tree. Oh, no. Not at all. That's not my way of thinking. I don't think the deer advisory team thought that way, and I don't believe the DNR or the commission do either. But the way we are viewing it is it gives us a very positive foundation stone to build from. It's a piece of the puzzle. It's going to help. It's not the answer, but it's a very good step towards making some better decisions in the future.
Right. I couldn't agree more. I think if that rolls out, you know, and then over the next decade or two, we can add to that the DMU managing. Maybe we get some predator hunting, you know, in Michigan, and 2 decades later, I think it's going to be overall a much greater acceptance, and I think overall it will have caused a lot of good, is my hope.
You know, if I had to put, and I've been asked this, you know, by people in official capacity as well as, you know, just average hunters, Jordan, if we go down this road with 1 buck, how long? How long is it going to take before, like, things are better?
Mm-hmm.
And I always preface it with the same answer. So, well, you have to understand how bad a shape our winter habitat is in.
Right.
And that is the threshold for survivability. Like, that's your carrying capacity.
Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. That's why it's going to be lower here.
And that's going to be a long-range thing that will exceed my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
But that being understood, I believe, and this is, I'm not a biologist, but I do believe, based on every bit of research I've done personally, all the conversations with people who are credentialed that I've had, if we give it 3 years, we will already be seeing things turn the corner.
Mm-hmm.
Here in the UP. Now, down in the Lower Peninsula, a lot faster, for differing reasons.
Absolutely.
But you have to look at the 1 buck, that this is not a get-rich-quick scheme.
No.
This is a long-term investment strategy. It's more like a low-interest CD, right? You put whatever, $100,000 in the bank and you leave it in there for a year at 3% interest. Well, so what? But you leave it in there for 10, 15, 20 years. Well, that really starts to accrue, doesn't it? Now, that's a sound investment. And I think that's the way that we have to apply our deer management strategies is there is no get-rich-quick scheme. There is no silver bullet. There is no this will be better next year.
Right.
It's taken time to become as broken as we've become, and it will take time to fix it. So people have to have a more distance runner mentality about this. But I do believe within 3 years, you could begin to see some of that fruit and see a turn.
That's my hope too. We'll wait and see what happens. I guess we could probably wrap this up. Let's just hit on the baiting.
Sure.
Just kind of where we're at with that. Last I've heard, it's a political controversy, right? Because there's a lot of people that are saying, well, this is the NRC. We want them to be making these decisions. But now for this bait ban to be gone away with, the legislature has stepped in. And it's the House that produced the bill 4445. And so you have the opposition. It's like, well, we want the NRC to do it. Well, guess what? The DNR is not behind that whatsoever. They are doubling down and with the whole CWD thing. So they're not going to be behind a bait ban lifting. So we have to have the legislature step in, which I'm not opposed to that at all. That's what they're there for. It's a checks and balances kind of thing. But it doesn't mean it's going to pass. It's on the table. And obviously, as a hunter, the vast majority are totally for it. But, we're just a small voice. So I don't know. As the DATs, Northern Upper Peninsula, anybody, their thoughts on it?
So we actually did not have any conversation in official capacity on the DAT about baiting. We were going to, however, the buck regulations were our team's focal point this year.
Yeah.
And that ate a lot of clock.
Right. And it's hard because up here we're allowed to bait. So.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of side conversations, obviously, between team members and department and commission.
Mm-hmm.
And there certainly does seem to be an appetite, broader spectrum, I would say, in Lower Michigan for a return of baiting. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that seems to be driven by the ideology that if you give us baiting back, then we'll kill more deer. And one of the ways that and this might be unpopular, but I'm going to push back on that. No, it's the way you're going to kill more bucks. Mm-hmm. You're not going to shoot more does.
I mean, statistically. Until you change the tag, maybe it shifts society. But yeah.
So does that on a biological basis? And I'm not even talking CWD, but just like herd health metrics again. Mm-hmm. Do we need to be killing more bucks?
Yeah.
Because we're not going to kill more does.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Because I would say, well, first off, the whole CWD, there is zero sound science on that. And that's what they're saying. It's the whole COVID era, man, with the government. They are telling you this is the experts, these are the scientists, and this is what's happening. And then a couple of years later, we're like, wow, that was all a lie. And the same thing has happened with CW. If you research the history on this and how long they've been going on with it, it is a moot point. In my opinion, it is a moot point. Move on. And until the government will allow that to happen, it's going to be a big controversy in deer hunting forever. It's a fear-mongering thing. It's awful. There is a part of me, and I've thought about this a lot, CWD could end hunting for us, in my opinion, in general. If the government continues to keep this push going the way it is, with no evidence that there is a crossover to humans, there's not. There absolutely is not. That we know.
Right. To my knowledge, there's no evidence that the disease is zoonotic.
There's also no evidence that it is killing our herd. Our herd's exploding. Right? So there is a concern that it is a disease. Is it a disease? Yeah, it's real. Has it been? It's probably been here forever. Which, it's just become a thing now.
The more you look for it, the more you find it?
Yeah. So the way I'm looking at it is if they continue on this path of CWD, it will get to a point where hunters, that's part of the reason why we have less hunters, is when you put on media that this is a zombie deer disease, you're going to have less people involved. You're going to lose some just from that. Now, if they can keep pressing this, and it would only get worse as far as hunter. Like, well, what's the point? If the government is telling me, like, this is a real thing and it is bad, and if you ask a hunter, if you have a CWD deer test positive, would you still eat it? Look, I probably already have. So, as you said, sound hunter choices and stuff, you're you're looking at your deer. Is it a healthy deer? I process all my animals by myself. I'm inspecting the organs, the chest cavity. If it's a healthy deer, I'm eating it. Whether
Sure.
it's sent off to a lab or not. But that's not the majority. There's a lot of, if you asked hunters, I'm just guessing though, because we don't know. If I'm going to say the majority of hunters, if I ask them, would you eat a CWD positive deer? I'm thinking the majority are going to say no. I'm probably in the lesser. But that's the one gripe I have with the whole CWD thing is the problem is solved. Let's move on.
Well, there's an ideology out there, from some of the folks that are more highly conservative on the right that believe this is an orchestrated effort to politically and through air quotes science destroy our way of life. Because if you can come in and say, holy cow, we've got a health crisis, public health crisis and disease, like you said, zombie deer, sensationalize the headlines and scare people the hell away from eating venison. Then what comes behind that? The animal rights people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're not hunting for food anymore. You're just out there killing.
Mm-hmm.
You're just killing to kill. You're just after trophies to put on your wall. Then they're coming at us. And how do you defend that?
Right.
Then it becomes an argument of, well, but it's my right to hunt, fish, and trap in the state of Michigan. And they say, show us that in the state constitution. It's not there.
Mm-hmm.
We got a problem. And then you can take that a little further, and they say, well, the vast majority of people have said they use their firearms for purposes of hunting. Well, if you're not hunting for meat, then you shouldn't probably be hunting for trophies. Then how much do you need your guns? Right? There's that far right ideology that can just keep.
You could keep going down that rabbit hole
and that's not the camp I'm in, but like I've heard all those talking points, right? And some of those things, I mean, you can kind of connect some of the dots. You're like, okay, I could see the danger here and there. Here's where I'm at on chronic wasting disease, and I've had some very lengthy conversations with well-credentialed people on this because I know enough to know I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a biologist. I am not a virologist. I don't know none of that. I'm a layman. Chronic wasting disease is definitely real.
Yeah.
It is
I agree.
Fatal deer disease. I agree. And there's some crazy stories about the genesis of this, like, us doing nearly Nazi death camp experiments on deer somewhere out west doing God knows what we probably shouldn't have been doing.
Well, it was Colorado.
Yeah.
And it was a college study, or had done it. My father-in-law went there. It was a Colorado State, I think.
That sounds right.
Fort Collins, whatever the case, doesn't matter. It was in Colorado. They had sheep there. Okay.
With the scrapie.
Yep. And after they were done with that study, sheeps are gone out of this pen. So now they're using this land for their new study. They're studying deer, and they're taking mule deer from Wyoming, and they're bringing them to this location. And then that's when it was discovered in that pen that the CWD, or what we know today. So that's the origin story. Who knows?
Right.
Who knows?
There's a lot of questions and not a lot of answers. And, that's one of the things that I look at in my decision-making process and my personal stance on CWD and baiting is I look at chronic wasting disease as emerging science. Like you put 10, again, experts in a room and say, okay, what's the truth about CWD? You're not going to have all 10 guys give you the same answer.
Oh, God, no. Not now.
Now, I go to a cardiologist, right? And I say, hey, something's wrong with my heart. 10 cardiologists are going to tell me the same thing is wrong with my heart and exactly the same procedure for how to fix it.
Yeah, most likely.
Most likely. Why? Because the science is established. It's proven. If this, then this. And with chronic wasting disease, we're still learning. We don't know everything about that disease yet. We don't know how to effectively manage it. If we did, we would be.
Right.
Right? We've got millions of dollars in federal grant funding pouring into the state of Michigan for research and for mitigation measures and all these sorts of things. If we knew what we were doing, we wouldn't have the problem. We would fix it.
I just don't see it as a problem, I guess. I don't see that as a problem. I don't see TB as a problem.
Here's an interesting point with chronic wasting disease, and this was thought-provoking for me. It was couched as an iceberg.
Mm-hmm.
They said chronic wasting disease is definitely a problem, but the span of time a hunter spends in the woods is relatively short. It's this micro block of time.
Mm-hmm.
CWD isn't going to manifest that rapidly. So imagine a giant, Arctic iceberg that carved, our Upper Peninsula. How fast did it move? I don't know, probably pretty slow.
Yeah.
Like,
Took a while to carve that out.
Right. Exactly. So that's the way this disease is going to function. It is very dangerous. It is very real, and people sleep on it because it is so slow moving. But once you hit a certain density isn't the word. What am I looking for? Frequency. A certain frequency of infection within your herd. You hit that tipping point, and then it's
maybe
decline. How long does it take to get there? I don't know. I don't know if they know. What is that exact tipping point? I don't know.
Have we seen that tipping point, though? That's the problem.
I don't think we have in the state of Michigan.
No, but not really anywhere else. That's the hard part is they slaughtered the deer first off in the area that they concentrated it in. And there's not much left.
Kill them so they don't die.
Same thing with TB. But we don't know. And that's I guess the problem I have with it is what the DNR says about it. They say these things as they are factual. However, the truth is they don't know for certain if that is factual. And I'll go over. It is a fatal disease. Maybe there's no herd immunity. You don't know that yet.
I would disagree with that.
You don't know, but that's what they're saying. And
I'm a proponent of herd immunity myself.
Look, Mother Nature is going to solve this problem whether we're involved or not. Mm-hmm. That's just my.
Oh, absolutely.
So why get more government involvement in a situation like this? Unless it does have an impact on human health, then obviously there is a concern there.
And I think that is kind of the DNR strategy, and maybe people don't like how they're going about it, and I don't necessarily know that I always do either. But again, I'm semi-ignorant about it.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole purpose of game management or fisheries management, whatever, is what? It's to mitigate the peaks and the valleys, to keep things more even keel, more measured, right? And I think that's what they're trying to avoid with CWD is the perceived valley.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're worried about. It's awful hard to mitigate what you don't understand, though. It really is. I mean, you're guessing. You're throwing darts at a dartboard, and you're hoping for the best. And there is some measure politically that I'll cut the DNR some slack on this. They have to be seen doing something.
Mm-hmm.
They can't do nothing.
Right.
They have to do something. Now, the problem is sometimes you just, proverbially speaking, walk into the engine room and start flipping levers and turning dials. Well, that might not end well.
Mm-hmm.
We have to do the right thing, not just do something. But politically, I do understand that they have to have a very public-facing policy and say, hey, these are the things that the Michigan DNR is doing because we are concerned about public health and we are concerned about the resource. I'll give them that.
And we got way off topic, but that brings it back to why we were talking about the bait ban.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. That's their whole science behind it is that's causing the CWD because you dump a bag of carrots and then all the deer get CWD. But it doesn't happen, though, if it's in the wild and the apples fall naturally and they're eating out of the same food plot. So I guess that's the overwhelming problem with that science. That's just that's rational, right?
Well, and I'll take your side on this issue for a second here, and I'll say it this way: we don't need to reinstate baiting because it never stopped.
Yeah.
If we're going to be honest, like the vast majority of hunters, especially like we talked about early on, Lower Michigan is so parceled, it's privatized.
Yeah,
90% of bucks are killed on what? Private land.
Yeah.
Are they all food plots? No.
No, they're still baiting.
There's metric tons of, rabbit food flying off the gas station pallets, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say that everybody is a lawless herd that isn't obeying the law, because there are honest Joes that are following the law, for sure.
Yeah.
But there is a very large percentage of people that is still continued to bait. So here's my question. If baiting was going to be the end of Michigan deer hunting as we knew it, the CWD apocalypse of the state, and everything we've been told about the correlation between bait and deer is true, then why hasn't the CWD apocalypse happened? Because baiting didn't stop.
No.
I think that's a very valid data point to bring to the discussion.
Me personally, I guess the argument is that the reason for it, right? The reason for the bait ban is not sound science. And it's like, how can we trust our government if they're going to double down on this and not be honest and open about it? That's the problem. So who cares if there's bait or not? Personally, I don't even really hunt down there. I just want there to be just like, let's use rational thought here.
Sure.
And just, is it going to change anything? Like you just said, no. It's just, it would be nice if they would admit this and just, hey, no bait ban, because, we just don't have evidence. We don't have the evidence now. Maybe in the future, if you had the evidence, go for it. But for now.
Well, let's talk about the legislative angle of the bait ban. And I think this is important to hit on. You commented that you were happy that the legislature was stepping in and exerting some common sense. And I think that's a good disposition, but I'm going to play devil's advocate. Why do we have Proposal G in the Natural Resources Commission?
So the legislature doesn't make those decisions.
Boom.
Yeah.
And now we're going right back and we're saying, well, the Natural Resources Commission won't give us what we want, so we're going to go around you.
Yeah.
And we're going to go through the legislature and do things the way exactly they're not supposed to be done.
Yeah.
Just so we can get what we want.
And unfortunately, that's where it's come to in politics in Michigan.
It's tough.
It is tough, and it's going to be a problem forever. Politics are getting more progressive throughout the country, and our state, we're not, And when you have a deputy director of the DNR appointed by a governor, when you have a 7-board panel of Natural Resources Commission board members appointed by a governor, how are you not avoiding the politics? I mean, come on.
That's built in.
It's literally, yeah. So.
Well, I mean, it even goes so far. A lot of people don't know this, but you cannot have so many Democrats and so many Republicans serving at one time of political affiliation on the commission. It is stipulated. You can never have more than 4.
Yep.
Right? So
but you can have some independents in there.
Yeah, air quotes.
Yeah.
Air quotes. So when the actual partisan jargon is built right into the structure of the Natural Resources Commission, and then you want to say, well, we got to keep politics out of the natural resources.
When already it's showing like there is a majority.
Buddy, you got to play on the chessboard.
Yeah.
And I don't like it, right? And I think a lot of sound-minded Michigan hunters don't like it. And it's created over the years a lot of angst, and I would even say generated significant hunter apathy, because the belief is, well, this is all so politicized and these people are full of crap and the bureaucracies are just padding their pockets and telling the lies, and my opinion doesn't matter. Why should I show up? Why should I send the email? Why should I make the phone call? Why even bother? Because it's all beyond redemption. And you and I were having this conversation off air a little bit before the show, and this is where I would tell someone, well, yes, if you go by yourself and you have your 5-minute public comment before the commission, you're probably not going to make it 10. But if 100 of us go, if 200 of us go, if 500 of us go, they're going to sit up and they're going to take notice. I'm not saying our system's perfect, because it sure ain't. It's flawed, it's broken, it's in need of reform, desperately so. But that reform isn't going to come from the agency or the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
That reform, that pressure to change, is brought to bear by the rank and file men and women that are sportsmen in the state of Michigan. It's us. It's on us to be the agent of change. And the way that you do that is you show up and you show out.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. I think we'll wrap it up there. Where is the next meeting is the most important one of the year.
Yep.
Because after that, the NRC is going to vote on all the information they've gathered over the last year. So
Okay.
when and where is that, and what time?
So the next Natural Resources Commission meeting will be at Lansing Community College, and that will be April 8th, which is a Wednesday. I
Okay.
believe it starts at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
It'll be a long day. So folks that are planning to attend, bring snacks, bring a soda, bring a water, whatever it is you prefer. It'll be a long, long day. But that, as you articulated, will be the most pivotal deer regulation meeting of the year. The vote won't actually transpire until the following month in May.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that one will be up in Gaylord at Treetops Resort. But the time for input is April.
Mm-hmm.
When they're having the May meeting, they're there to vote. The decisions are made. We're not
Right.
changing anyone's mind the day of the vote.
Yeah.
So if you want to get your voice heard, and I don't care if you're in opposition to some of the things that we've talked about here today, you don't like one buck, you don't like antlerless DMU management, you want your rifle season left alone, whatever it is, whether you're for or against, show up and say your piece. Don't be a Facebook warrior, because that does nothing.
Right.
It does nothing for you, and it does nothing for anybody else, and it certainly does nothing for the deer. If you want to be a part of change and you want to be a part of the process, you got to be at these things. And, for us here in the Western UP especially, that's a big ask. To spend all the fuel to travel down there, you're eating out, you got to deal with a hotel, time off of work, burning that PTO. I get it. That is a burden for people. And if it's too much for you, but you're like, well, Jordan, is there anything else I can do? Yes. Yes, there is. You can send an email. So it's nrc@michigan.gov. And, write a well thought out, respectful letter stating your opinion on whatever subject it is you want to address. Send it to nrc@michigan.gov. That goes directly to all the commissioners, and they do read them.
And that I've done.
There's people out there that say, oh, they don't read those. I know for a fact they read them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, if you get on there and you're being a jerk and using profanity or whatever, they're going to delete it, right? So be well stated, be respectful, and state your case. You can also contact some of these commissioners by telephone. If you get on the Michigan DNR website, go to Boards and Committees, About Us, tabs, Natural Resources Commission, and then there will be a hot link that you can click on. It'll say commissioner names and contact information.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those commissioners have additional personal emails listed or phone numbers listed. One in particular who's really responsive is Commissioner John Walters from Indian River.
Okay.
Anyone I have ever spoken to in either peninsula that has called Commissioner Walters, he has either answered on the spot or he has returned their call within 24 hours.
Okay.
He's really engaged. So that's a resource for people that are not able to travel. You can make the phone call, you can send the email, but I really do encourage you, if you are at all able, this is going to be a big one. Mm-hmm. This is the Super Bowl of deer regulations, and we stand at a crossroads in the state of Michigan right now where we are either going to double down on bad policy and I believe slide into some of the darkest ages we've had for deer management, or we're going to take a bold step into the future and the positive is just going to build. And I don't think there's going to be any in between. And the decisions that are rendered this spring, they're going to be game changers for the good or the bad.
Right. Well, all I can say is I hope in a couple months we're celebrating. But April 8th, Lansing Community College, 9 a.m. Any
Yes,
hunter that can be there and just show numbers.
I would add this to that, and I should have said this before. So during public comment period, there is 5-minute and 3-minute public comment.
Mm-hmm.
If you want 5 minutes to speak to the commission, you need to sign up 1 week in advance.
Okay.
And you do that through nrc@michigan.gov.
Okay.
You simply send in that email and say, hey, I'm John Smith, and I want to talk about whatever, rifle season, whatever subject matter is. And they will give you your 5 minutes. But you have to do it no less than a week in advance to be given your 5 minutes. If it's less than a week in advance, you'll be given 3 minutes.
Okay.
You can also walk in the door, and they usually have index cards by the door when you come in, and you can write your name and your subject down, and you can still get 3 minutes the day of.
Mm-hmm.
I would highly encourage people, though, because of the volume of participation and attendance that we're going to have, you really should pre-register.
Okay.
Because it might get to the point where we're 3 hours into public comment and the commission simply says, okay.
Yeah. Cut off.
Yeah. At some point, we've got to be reasonable here, and we've heard you people for 3 hours, and
all right,
that's it.
But either way, if you don't want to talk, just numbers in general are going to speak volume. So
absolutely.
If you can get there, be there on Wednesday, April 8th, 9 a.m., Lansing Community College.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, Jordan, as always, thanks again, man. I appreciate the conversation.
Thank you, Ryan.
Awesome.
This episode is brought to you by GMK Logging. With GMK, your property can be transformed into a deer hunter's paradise, giving you a huge bump in success and real estate value. Give Greg Compo a call for a no-risk, no-cost assessment at 989-213-6499. Michigan Brand. Michigan Brand is a third-generation family-owned and operated business out of mid-Michigan. They are known for their world-famous hams, jerky, and various sausage products. You can find Michigan Brand all over the state of Michigan, as well as other states throughout the U.S. Check them out at michiganbrand.net. That's michiganbrand.net to learn more. This podcast is brought to you by Wild Game Dynasty, a professional hunting outfitter and guide service. If you're looking for a world-class adventure in Michigan's premier outdoors, look no further. Book your guided hunt now with Gary Morgan at wildgamedynasty.com.